tour Hilchos Yom Tov. There's so many shirim available to people.
The reason why you picked the
I'm about to explain that. There are so many shirim available on things like Hilchos Shabbos, but almost no one ever studies Hilchos Yom Tov. They might study the halachas that are unique to Pesach or Sukkot or Rosh Hashanah and so on, but the general halachas of Yom Tov are an orphan, let us say. And I felt that it's a good idea to know these things, and to have some type of background in them.
He said you only need on 48 Simanim a day.
48 one day, 49 the other day, alternating between them.
All this in 30 days.
It covered the Shulchan Aruch. The tour is much longer than the Shulchan Aruch. All right. No, we are not going to attempt to do 48 or 49 Simanim a day of the tour. By the way, he's only saying that's possible for someone that already knows the Beis Yosef. If you know the Beis Yosef, just reading the summaries, it's easier than trying to figure it out if you haven't read what he previously wrote.
Got it.
All right. בחודש, Hilchos Yom Tov starts in the Siman Tav Tzei Adi Hey, 495. בחודש ראשון, B'Yud Dalet Yom L'Chodesh, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, Bein Harbaim, in the afternoon, Pesach L'Hashem, it's Pesach to God, Chulu. ובחמשה עשר Yom L'Chodesh Zeh Chag HaMatzos, the 15th day of this month is the festival of Matzos. Kol Melacha's Avodah Lo Tעשו, all times of matter you're not supposed to do. ותנן NaaMar b'Shiva Shelo, and so too it says on the 8th day of Pesach, ובראשון ובשמיני של חג עצרת, and the first and the 8th day of עצרת, ובראשון and Rosh Hashanah, הלכך כל מלאכה אסורה בשבת, אסורה ביום טוב, חוץ ממלאכת אוכל נפש. Therefore, any melacha that is prohibited on Yom Tov is prohibited on Shabbos, except for that which is okel nefesh, that which we need to eat. Dechthiv, as it says, ach asher ya'chel lekol nefesh, hu lebdо יעשה לכם. Only that which you need to eat for every neshama, nefesh, person, it alone will you do. ותנן, and we learn, ein ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos ela okel nefesh bilbad. The Mishnah says there's no difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov except for the halachos of okel nefesh. Shemuter b'Yom Tov, they are mutter and Yom Tov, chutz mehotza v'havara, other than carrying and making a fire. Shemitoch shehutru l'tzorech okel nefesh, because once they were permitted for us to do for food, hutru nami shelo l'tzorech, they're also permitted shelo l'tzorech. Ubavad sheyeh b'hon tzorech ketzas, as long as you have some need for them. All right? Meaning, I cannot fill my backpack up with stones and carry it to Shulam Yom Tov because I'm allowed to do hotzah. I have no need for it, right? There has to be some need. If I prefer using my machzor than the shul siddur, so that's tzorech ketzas. There's a little need for it, right?
What if you want to get stoned on simple stuff?
Yeah, right. Kasher yispar, like we'll explain. Be'ezras Hashem. V'ken machshiri ochel nefesh, and so too the things I need to prepare. Kevan shetzarech l'tikun ha'ochlim mutter l'sosim b'yom tov. Also things I need to do to get ready for food, right? Because I need them to make food. Therefore, I'm allowed to do them yom tov. Kegon she'iev shar l'sosim me'esmol. This is when you couldn't do them yesterday. Aval im haya efshar l'sosim me'esmol. But if I could do them yesterday, asur l'sosim b'yom tov, then I can't do it on yom tov. All right. Aval shar kol malachos asuras b'yom tov. Everything else is asur. V'lokin aleichem, you get lashes for them. V'ketzira v'tachina u'betzira v'schita, and harvesting crops, grinding grain, harvesting vegetables, squeezing juices, oils. Afal pishem ochel nefesh asur m'chachamim. Even though they're ochel nefesh, the chachamim prohibited them. Uperoshri, and the re-explained. Hatam lefisha adam ragil liktzor sadehu v'litzor karmo ke'echad. Because a person harvests a lot at one time, right? I don't go out and harvest enough wheat for 2 cups of flour to make bread, right? It doesn't work this way. I don't go out and get enough grapes, right, to make a bottle of grape juice or wine. V'lidroch kol anavav, that you walk on your grapes. V'litchon harbe biyachad, and you grind a lot of grain at once. V'chashu uchachamim, the chachamim were concerned. Shim hayu matirim biyom tov, haya kotzer kol sedehu, botzer kol karmo, v'dorach kol anavav, v'yimna misimchas yantiv. So I'll go out, I'll harvest my whole field today, right? Or my field might be larger than that. Half of whatever I can, right? I'll work all day harvesting the field. I won't have simchas yantiv. V'ken b'tseida, and so to entrapping, asru, shepamim, shetale b'mitzuda dagim harbe, because sometimes you get a lot of fish in your net, right? And in the Yerushalmi, they have pesukim for why these things are prohibited. And there are those things that were more strict on Yom Tov than on Shabbos. According to Muktzah, the Rav Alfas, the Afagav, the Kaimelan b'Shabbos, Reb Shimon, that even though on Shabbos we accept Reb Shimon, b'Yom Tov pasuk Rabbi Yochanan, and on Yom Tov we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. I'm sorry, Lefi shehu kal, because he's more lenient.
There's an assumption. I wrote that people understand what says the Kaimelan b'Shabbos, Reb Shimon. Without explaining what Bereshit says.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Oh.
The tour we'll get to more details on Muktzah later on. And we were more strict on Shabbos because we were afraid that people wouldn't, on Yom Tov because we were afraid people wouldn't take Yom Tov seriously. So we say there are certain things that we have that are usher to move around on Shabbos, and there could have been many more, but Rav Shimon says that there's no such thing as muktzah on Shabbos, and so we have a limited number of things. However, on Yom Tov, it's basically anything that isn't l'tzorach Yom Tov is muktzah. V'ken kasev b'shiltos, and so too the Shiltos writes, the first art scroll sefer, right? Because it was written in the language of the day for the simple people to be able to read who didn't know the Aramaic of the Gemara or.
I think referring to the art scroll, its first book that wrote was.
No. The Shiltos was the, 1400 year, 1200 year predecessor of art scroll, in terms of putting things out for the Hamon Am to be able to read, which makes it a little bit problem. Even if you're fluent in the Aramaic of the Gemara, the Shiltos is written in the Aramaic of 300 years later. In Bavel, not exactly the same thing, so you have to learn different Aramaic to learn it. V'ken perish Rambam Zal, and so too is the Rambam. Aval Bal Halachos Gedolos V'Rashi V'Riv V'Rabbeinu Tam Poskim K'Reb Shimon Bein B'Shabbos Bein B'Yom Tov. But all of these authorities paskin like Reb Shimon both on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But he said, well, it wasn't it. Only with muktzah, but in terms of nolad, the halacha is like Reb Yehuda. They can, Rabbeinu Chanano Psak, Reb Shimon, Af B'Yom Tov, and Rabbeinu Chanano also did this. Ela b'muktzah machmas iser v'nolad, except for the 2 categories of muktzah that are because of this thing is prohibited. Let us say a pen, or nolad, or it's a new thing, like an egg that was laid today. Pasakri, and this he paskins Rabbi Yom Tov on Yom Tov. To understand this thoroughly, we would have to sit down and learn through the halachos of muktzah. There is a sefer in English called the halachos of muktzah that is quite good. It's an entire sefer. And there are 9 categories of muktzah and so on and so forth. But Ezra Hashem eventually will get to the tour when he talks about all of the halachas of muktzah and Hilchos Shabbos, and then we can understand this all properly, and then we can come back and look at this carefully. All right. The Torah continues. V'ani nosim shnei yamim, and we do 2 days. Kol masha asur b'rishon asur gam b'sheni. Anything that's prohibited on the first is prohibited on the second. He, of course, lived chutz la'aretz, right? I mean, if you think about it, throughout most of the history of the Jews have lived chutz la'aretz, not near Israel, unfortunately. But u'minadin alav misha mezalzel bo, and we put in nidui, in excommunication, someone that makes fun of, doesn't take seriously the second day of Yom Tov. V'imu tzurba m'rabbanan, and if he's a rabbinical type, ein machmirim lidosa. We're not so machmir to put him in cherem, ela malkinoso, but we give him lashes instead. So apparently, giving someone lashes was less severe in their mind than being put in cherem. V'lin in meis bilvad, who chiluk sheni min harishon. Only concerning burying the dead is there a difference between the first and second day. Kasher yisbar be'ezras Hashem. Like we'll explain be'ezras Hashem toward the end. I believe it's the second last halacha. In Hilchos Yantif, he explains all the halachas of burying a Yantif by non-Jews on the first day or by Jews on the second day. V'ken l'kchol ayin, and so too to put kchol on the eye. This was viewed as a type of medicine, although I think most eye doctors today would be very negative about such a treatment. Afal pisha asur b'rishon, even though it's prohibited on the first, ela al yedei akum, except for by a non-Jew. Ela imken yesh bo sakana, unless there's the danger in it. Ubasheni mutter afilu al yedei Yisrael. And the second day it can be done by Yisrael. Afal pi shem bo sakana, even there's no danger. Ubiyom tov sheni shel Rosh Hashanah asur. And the second day of Rosh Hashanah it's prohibited. Imlo al yedei akum, unless it's by a non-Jew. Or shahaya bo sakana, or there's danger. V'hineni misader hilchosav al seder tikun hamachal tzeda zimun v'shchita v'hefshed u'malicha sa'or v'chalavim v'lekicha sabasar v'eitzim haruim lahastir, and all of the various halachas. I'm not going to food and trapping and saying things that I'm going to use these things on Yom Tov, so setting them aside so they won't be muktzah, slaughtering in Yom Tov, skinning the animals, salting the hide so it won't start to rot, and what I'm supposed to do with the fats that I have to separate and so on, and the meat, buying meat, and the wood that is fit for burning, v'tikun ha'esh, and how to make fires, hatav shel v'seder apas, and cooking and baking bread, medidas ekemach, how you measure, because measuring is another thing that's prohibited on Shabbos. V'rakada, and sifting it. We buy pre-sifted stuff nowadays. Velisha, kneading. V'afreshus challah, separating challah. V'tikun apas, v'afiyaso, making bread and baking it. V'hesek kataner, firing the stove. Machshiri okhel nefesh, all the preparations for food. The iser bishul l'klovim, that I cannot cook for my dogs. Ubeitza shenolda b'yom tov, and a egg that was hatched on Yom Tov, what I'm supposed to do with it. The kivui hapsila v'hadlakta, putting out a wick and relighting it. The avodas glulim hamevi daron liYisrael, and a non-Jew that brings a gift to Jews. Uma mishalchim b'yom tov, and what we can send to them or to other people on Yom Tov. Veter kniya hachenveni, and buying things from the store owner. Vinyan hotzav, the tiltul, carrying and moving things around. Tiltul mace, moving a dead body. B'yom tov, the erev tavshilin v'chatzeros, and when do we need an erev tavshilin to be able to cook on Friday before Shabbos, and the dinim of chatzeros, of the erev, to allow people in one chatzer, or one building, let us say, to be able to carry things from one person's apartment to another. All of these things we will explain as we go through. All right. He's just given us a massive list of things that we have to learn.
Yes.
All right. Ein sading dagim min habivrim b'yom tov. I cannot catch fish from the bivar on Yom Tov. one of the things that they did in Bavel, and we have similar things by the Jordan River, right? They fill up ponds with water, right? And they raise fish in them.
Mm-hmm.
What they did in Bavel is they would then drain the water out with a net over the exit, right? Once the fish were all grown up. And this is a way I could easily catch the fish, right? I could raise a crop of fish, catch them nice easily, and then I can reflood this pond to get my next flock of fish. So I'm not allowed to do that on Yom Tov. I assume the reason is the same reason why I'm not allowed to harvest my field, because it's something I generally do in quantity.
Exactly. You're not going to do that with one fish.
He's saying even if you want to do it with one fish, it's not the normal way of doing this, so therefore it's prohibited. You're not allowed to feed them.
Would you be allowed to take one fish out of the pond without draining it?
He's saying no, we don't allow it. We just
go get your fish before you enter.
Yeah. Vim stamas amasamayim b'knisa ubiyitzia me'erev Yom Tov. And if I seal the drainage ditch where it comes in or out, erev Yom Tov, mutter likach mimenu dagim b'Yom Tov. Then I can take it on Yom Tov. Meaning, I'm draining this thing before Yom Tov. I'm not doing anything at all on Yom Tov. I'm just going there and picking up the fish. I don't know why you do this. It would seem to be a huge loss because fish don't keep for that long, right? It's, if you do this Yom Tov time in Bavel, I think the fish will be pretty smelly by the next day. Tahavi lehu nitzodin va'omdin, because they're already trapped and waiting there. Afilu sefek tzeda aser, even if there's a doubt, it's prohibited. Kagon, mitzudas chaya dagim va'ofo shaya prushos me'erev Yom Tov. I put out my snares for animals or my nets for fish, erev Yom Tov. Ulamachar motze behem, and the next day on Yom Tov I find that they've got stuff in them. Asurin, they're prohibited. Edlim can you do unless I know they were trapped before Chag. So if you put up something that would tell the time that was trapped, today we could do this easily. I don't know whether they had such a way of doing it. Right? You could do it. The avasim v'tarnagolin shebebayis mutter l'tzodan, and your geese and chickens that are in your house, you're allowed to catch them. Meaning they're my domesticated ones, right? They come when I throw down the stuff, so I'm not really trapping them, right? They come to me. Vein tzarech zimun. I don't have to say this one I'm going to eat or whatever. V'shar kol chaya v'of kol shemuchusarim tzeda, and all other wild animals and birds, anything that is lacking in its trapping. Shetzarech lomar havei metzuda v'nitzadenu. Let's, get the stuff to catch it with, and we'll catch it. It doesn't have any type of trap. Aser l'tzodan, you can't do it. V'litein lifneihem mazanos, or to put before them food. Meaning, if they're wild, they can take care of themselves, right? I don't have to feed them every day. Whereas the animals that are not wild, right? My cow in its stall, right? I have to feed it.
Well, then there may be a class in between the two. My mother fed birds every single day. These blue jays, and there was a series of birds that came, literally fed them every single day. After she died, they all died. They ceased being.
I'm sure they would be okay for one day, though. V'kol she'ein mechusarin tzeda, and anything that's lacking in its trapping.
That's not like
She'ein mutzarim tzeda, anything that doesn't. Mutter l'todan. I'm allowed to trap it. V'lif tein lifneihem mazonos, and I can put before it and I can feed them. Ayel v'tzvi, a gazelle and a deer. Shekananu bepardes, that they made their nest in a orchard. V'yaldu bo efarim, and they gave birth to does. Ve'yadayim hem ketanim, shein tzarech tzeda. They're still so small you don't have to trap them. Mutarim below zimun. They're allowed without anything in advance. V'davka b'pardes samuch lir. This is only a orchard close to the city. Betoch shivim ama, within let's say 140 feet. Dedato lave, because he's thinking about it. Aval im eno samuch lir. If it's farther than that in the city, no. V'im afilu zimein ein moel la, and even if you said I'm going to take it, it doesn't help. Kevan shemuchuseres tzeda, because it's lacking in trapping. Meaning, animals that stay away from the city, away from people, I don't care whether it's in my orchard or not, it's not going to be so easy for me to grab them. Yone shovach, the yone aliyah, the doves that live in my dovecote or in my attic, v'tziporim shekanadu b'tifichim, and the birds that, I guess this is rafters, something like that. The birds that make their nest in the rafters, asur l'tzodam, you're not allowed to trap them, because they fly free, right? They may always come back to this place, but they do fly free. As opposed to chickens, if you put chickens in an area with a wall or a fence, they don't fly over the wall or fence unless it's really, really low.
Chickens don't fly.
They sort of hop along the ground, right? Hilchach, ein moel lehem siman. Even if I say I'm going to take from there, it doesn't help. V'hani mili b'gdolim. This is true of the large ones. Aval b'ktanim, but with the small ones, mutter l'tzodan. Here I'm allowed to trap them because they don't fly yet. Aval zimu. I don't know why you would want to eat one of the birds this small. It's going to be more bones than anything else. You're going to taking the bones out is going to be impossible. Aval zimun tzrichim. But I have to say I'm going to take this pair of baby birds. The ketzad who has simun, and how do we say this? Omer, zeh v'zeh ani notel machar. These ones I'm going to take tomorrow. Vein sarech l'nanei. I don't have to move them around. Zimein shechorim umatzel leveinim, or ibcha. If I said, these two black birds that are in this, or these two black sheep that are here, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to slaughter tomorrow for my lunch, and I come back and they're not black ones, they're white ones. Or shnayim umatza shlosha, or I said there were two in my pen, and now I find three. Pashita she'asurim, it's obvious they're asur, right? Ela afilu zimein shchorim ulevenim umatza shchorim bimkom levenim. Even if I said I'm going to I have some black ones and I have some white ones, and I'm going to slaughter them all, and I come back the next day and all I find are black ones, no white ones. Levenim bimkom shchorim, or I only find white ones instead of the black ones. Asurim. They're prohibited. Zimen shlosho matzah shnayim mutarim. If I said these three sheep I'm going to slaughter tomorrow, and I come out and there are only two left, that's mutter, right? B'toch kanu matzah lifnei akan. If I said these two baby doves, they're in the nest, and I found them in front of the nest, v'lo b'tocha, not in it, asurin, they're prohibited. Because just like these came out, maybe it's another group that came here. I don't know. If there's no other nest, mutarim, then they're mutar. This is as long as they can't fly. Because then you can't say they came from wherever, right? If they're flying birds, flying doves can fly a long way, right? Just because they're young and they got tired quickly and so they stopped in my yard doesn't mean they're the ones that were mine, because mine are also got to the age when they can start flying and who knows where they are. They move a little bit. But they don't fly yet. Even if there's another nest within 50 amma, it could have come a little bit of time from there. If it's standing so that you can see it, or the corner or something like that. Mutter, it's a mutter. Shein midida mishan lakan, because it's not going to go. It's too far away. It's not going to get this distance. She'enu yachol liros kano b'kol pam, because you can't always see it. Meaning it's sometimes hidden, sometimes visible. It's at a distance, whatever. It's too far. Mm-hmm. But if you can clearly see it, they'll go visiting this way. All right. Hashochet behema b'yom tov. If one wants to shecht an animal on Yom Tov, tzarech shelo yivdok ad shiyafshit. You don't do the bedikas pnim until you have skinned the animal. Why? She'im yimtza treifa, because if when you do the bedika it turns out to be an animal that's a treifa, lo yerishai lahafshita, then you can't skin it anymore. And by the time motzi yantif is over,
meaning it's muktzah.
It's muktzah if it's not a kosher. And by the time yantif is over, the skin is also going to be damaged by the gases inside the animal. So it's all going to be worthless. Ube'inyan tiltul abaser, and in terms of moving the wood, the meat, the revalsa of chapatzak b'muktzah, Rabbi Yehuda b'Yom Tov aser, and according to Rav Alphas who paskins like Rabbi Yehuda on Yom Tov, it's aser. But Rabbeinu Tam shapasik Reb Shimon, and Rabbeinu Tam paskins like Reb Shimon that there is a muktzah. Sorry, you're allowed to move around the meat, right? I don't have to let it get rotten in my yard. I could throw it into my neighbor's yard and let it get rotten in his yard. Inyan mechira akum, and in terms of selling it to a non-Jew, nira shemutter. It appears that it's mutter. Kederach sheyatiru mechira liYisrael. Just like I'm allowed to sell things to a Yisrael that he needs for yantiv. Shelo yishkol, but I'm not allowed to measure the meat out, right? Velo yazkir sekum damim, and I'm not allowed to mention the amount of money. V'imenu mamino, and what if I don't trust that the nanju is going to come back and pay me? Yikach mimenu mashkan, I can take collateral from him. Shim lo ken lo yishchatu. If not, the shochet's never going to agree to shecht an animal for the fresh meat on yantif. And the fresh barbecue is much better than the meat from yesterday's barbecue. Va'asim linue misimchas yantiv. And this will stop people to get simchas yantiv. Keda amar gabe nesinas oros lifnei hadoris. Just like we will say about putting the hides down so that people can walk over them to start getting off the remains of the meat that stay on when you skin it.
No, see, it wasn't paskening. The last paragraph is the host written
he gives you both. He gives the tour, by the way, is not quick to paskin. He'll put both opinions in front of you, or more than two opinions in front of you, and you get to decide. One of the things I like about learning Torah, I very much like this about the Torah, is that you can see the tapestry of halacha. And so if you learn the Torah, what so often happens is people will say, he's not acting properly. He's not acting right. And they don't realize that he's conducting himself according to this shita, which is a legitimate opinion in the Rishonim. And he's conducting himself again according to this shita, which is a legitimate opinion among the Rishonim. All right.